Good evening, class. My name is Jason Woolard, and welcome to my screencast for SDI Term 1209, Project 3. I'd like to start this off by pointing out the various difficulties I have faced this week throughout my project. The first one was actually the math element from the flowchart. As you can see here, I set up a math function to try and pull a random element from the key under pet object called element from the array right here, and from there I was trying to call it down here, and it didn't work out that well. Sorry, it didn't work out very well. As you can see, I commented it out. For now, that is anyway. The setter and the getter method is an actual second thing I'm having a little trouble with. As you can see here, I've already tried getting the getter method set up to try and pull a name from an object that I'm going to have set up down here. But I'm actually still working on that, and hopefully I have that set up by 12 tonight. And the third and last thing I'm having a lot of trouble with is actually the flowchart, which I'm sure a lot of you are having trouble with as well. For me, I found that getting functions made up in my head is a lot easier, and as well as getting them down in the text editor, but when it comes to implementing them into a flowchart, I find that very difficult for some reason. Alright, enough of the difficulties. One thing I found easier to do this week was actually using GitHub. I actually switched to the GitHub application over a terminal, which I used last week for Project 2, which I felt was a lot easier as far as user interface, and it only took me a few clicks as far as getting different commits and pushing them out, which I felt was a lot easier than typing in various commands in terminal. Now, as far as one of the extra questions go for this week, whether or not I think if I told an interesting story or not, I myself have actually been using the same story every time, just improving it and changing a lot around to improve it as a whole. Whether it would be just making the code cleaner or making everything more customizable, for example, more variables in places of names, etc. I actually felt that in some ways it was harder, but in some ways it was actually easier to work with fewer constraints, mainly because in the beginning I actually had problems as far as using every element within the flowchart. But once I actually did get them all in, I felt myself getting more creative and in depth and learning a lot more, and methods came easier to come up with as time went on. I feel that not only will this activity help me out, but the course as a whole when it comes to learning Objective-C and other languages that are similar to JavaScript. I'd like to thank you for your time in viewing my screencast, and I look forward to viewing all of yours.